Picture this. It's Monday morning, you're walking into the office, and immediately you're hit with a total lack of visibility across your different departments. Your team is completely bogged down by tedious manual processes, and honestly, there's just a glaring lack of effective collaboration between teams. Sound familiar? These are the painful, chaotic daily realities that so many businesses face when their data is just completely disconnected. But what if there was a way to actually bring order to all of this chaos? Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're talking about the ultimate hero that solves this business chaos: enterprise resource planning, or ERP systems. More specifically, we're going to look right under the hood to understand exactly how they're built. If your company is positioning for a system overhaul, or maybe you're implementing one for the very first time, you absolutely need to understand the blueprint of how these systems are put together. So here's our roadmap for today. First, solving business chaos. Second, unpacking ERP modules. Third, the core architecture layers. Fourth, architecture models compared. And finally, deployment and integration. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, solving business chaos and the actual role of the ERP. Okay, let's dive into this. What exactly is ERP architecture? Basically, it refers to the structure and design of the entire system. It's the specific configuration of all your hardware and software components. Think of it literally like building a brand new corporate headquarters. You can't just throw a bunch of desks into an empty lot, right? You need a solid architecture. You need the plumbing, the electrical wiring, the hallways. That structure dictates how efficiently people and resources can actually move around. Well, employing the right ERP architecture optimizes your functionality in the exact same way, ensuring this centralized system actually streamlines your operations. Let's move to Section 2, unpacking ERP modules, which are basically the individual rooms in our building. An ERP system unifies totally disparate processes by creating a single source of truth for your company's data, and it does this using different modules. Let's trace a little narrative here. Imagine a customer places an order. Boom. That data hits your Customer Relationship Management, or CRM module, which instantly organizes their contact details and their purchase history. Immediately, the Inventory Management module gets pinged to check stock and make sure we don't have a stock out. If we need more materials, well, the Supply Chain Management module steps in to coordinate that. All the while, the Accounting module is tracking the incoming payment, and the Human Resources module is handling the payroll for the employees who are actually making this all happen. It's like a giant puzzle where one single piece of data flows seamlessly through all these components, all because they share the exact same architecture. That brings us to Section 3, the core architecture layers, going from the foundation all the way up to the roof. And this brilliantly illustrates how data flows across 3 core layers. First up, we have the presentation layer, which is basically the user interface. This is what you actually see, the graphical interface where you interact with the system, like when you're inputting a new sales order. That input then drops down into the application layer, which houses the business logic. This is the hardware, the CPU, and the software that governs the actual rules. It's the brain saying, okay, create the sales order, send it over to the warehouse for shipping, and bill the client. Finally, it reaches the bottom, the database layer. This is your centralized data storage that keeps all of this transactional and master data safely locked away. Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds out over time, architecture models compared. So historically, we started with a 2-tiered ERP architecture. This setup groups everything into just 2 buckets: servers and clients. In this model, the clients provide that user interface, what the end user is clicking on. They request data directly from the servers, and those servers are handling both the database requests and usually the application tasks too. The benefits here? Well, they're pretty great for simpler setups. You get easy access, very low upfront infrastructure costs, and solid performance if you only have a small number of workstations. But there is a massive limitation. Because the application and the database are so heavily intertwined, any change or modification you make to the database is going to directly impact the client applications. It's incredibly rigid. Now, you might be wondering, is the 2-tier model just entirely obsolete? Actually, no. It still serves a very specific, valuable purpose today. It's actually highly suitable for multinational companies that have smaller subsidiaries, organizations going through massive mergers and acquisitions, or companies trying to meet really strict regional compliance requirements. Why? Because this model lets regional offices have an ERP that is tailored strictly to their own local processes. Then, the headquarters can just plug those localized ERPs right into their central system. It delivers huge cost savings by completely avoiding a forced, massive single ERP rollout across a really diverse organization. Now, what's really interesting about this is the visual leap from the two-tier model over to the three-tier model. We've essentially added a dedicated application layer right in the middle. We have officially separated the presentation interface, the screen on your laptop, from the actual data storage in the servers, just by dropping in a distinct layer solely for processing those business rules and core functionalities. So the crucial point is, why does this matter? Well, this separation of layers means that each one can scale completely independently. If your company suddenly needs a way more powerful database, you can just upgrade it. You don't have to rebuild the entire user interface from scratch. You can customize and update individual software layers without crashing the whole system. And that flexibility is exactly what allows modern ERPs to meet the really intense, varied demands of everything from massive multinational enterprises all the way down to incredibly agile service-based companies. And that naturally brings us to the modern evolution, service-oriented architecture, or SOA. This is a web-based design approach that takes that three-tier logic and just blows it out into a collection of totally independent modular services. Instead of one giant, heavy application layer, you have different services responsible for very specific functions. This allows for literally incredible integration. Users can seamlessly connect through web browsers or mobile apps, and the system can easily tie into cloud services and even Internet of Things devices. It's highly modular, meaning it can be perfectly mixed and matched to create new functionality tailored specifically to your business. All right, moving to our final section, deployment and integration, or simply, where this all lives. So once you have your architecture blueprint totally mapped out, you have to decide on the infrastructure. Where is this digital headquarters actually going to live? Well, organizations basically have a few main options. You can choose an on-premises deployment, which means you own and manage the physical servers right there in your own building. Or you can opt for cloud deployment, where the application and the database are hosted remotely. And depending on an organization's specific preferences and resources, there are also hybrid models that kind of mix the two, or even open source options for those who want ultimate customization. Though, keep in mind, going heavy on customization can seriously increase your complexity and maintenance costs over time. So, looking at the daily realities of your own workplace, how your CRM, your HR, and your accounting departments are actually talking to each other, it really leaves us with one essential question to ask about our own organizations. Is your architecture built to scale, or is it built to fail? If a single update to your database would completely break your user interface, or if your teams are still battling tedious manual processes just because the layers simply aren't talking to each other, well, it might be time to rethink your blueprint. Understanding these architectures, whether it's two-tier, three-tier, or service-oriented, is the absolute first critical step to transforming business chaos into seamless, unified growth. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a completely new perspective on the systems powering your workday.